Good morning, Brokers Playbook family. I'm here with Simeon Papaelias, my lovely co-host. How you doing today, Simos?
I'm really good, Laura. How are you?
Never better, never better.
Today is an exciting morning, isn't it? We have
It is. It
we have
is.
our good friend from Oria. We have Mr. Tim Hudak joining us. I'm pumped.
Yes, this is our second interview on Brokers Playbook with Tim. I guess they're about a year apart now.
Yes.
And as many of you know, Tim Hudak is the former progressive conservative leader and politician in Ontario. He became the CEO of Oria in 2016, and he's done some incredible things since then.
He sure has. Most notably and most impactful to our lives as brokers, he fought for with all the team at Oria and brought in successfully the personal real estate corporations last year. And I can attest to being a pretty high performing broker myself, that it's made a massive monster difference to my bottom line. And I know hundreds of my colleagues who have had a massive impact as a result of the efforts and the success of ARIA in getting that through. So a big, huge cheers to that. I'm not going to wait to bring him in. He is in the virtual waiting room. I do want to bring him in, Laura, because both there was a study that just got released that the PRECs were the success was double of what was anticipated.
No
So a
way.
lot more people took advantage of it. So I do want to get his comment, and then we have to speak about like today we're going to be covering all things affordability
Yeah.
and how we're going to be fighting this massive fight to keep prices under control. So without further ado, let me bring in the big man.
Let's do it.
The big man, eh?
There he is. There he is. How are you, sir?
That's great. Simi, Laura, great to see you both. Great to be back on the Brokers Playbook. It's been a year, eh?
Sure has.
It's been that long.
It's been a year, Tim, and welcome to the show, my man. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. A lot of our brothers and sisters are going to be very excited to hear all the initiatives that you're working on, as am I and Laura.
Sure.
So what I mentioned on the intro, and I'm not too sure if you could hear us in the waiting room or not, but I mentioned that you have been delivering some major wins for brokers, and you're working now on initiatives above and beyond the industry, meaning our brothers and sisters in the business. You're working on an effort where the Ontario Real Estate Association is really going to war. They're really putting together some strong bullet points to fight things that are causing prices to stay high and go higher. And those are the things that I want you to touch on today. I want us to break it down. I know
Sure.
Laura has prepared some amazing questions because I saw her questions. So take us from an overall point where you're working on, what you're working on right now, and we'll dive right in.
Yeah, well, just to go back, so I could hear you. It wasn't like the isolation chamber in a game show, right? Where you got the headphones on. So it's very kind, both you and Laura. Thank you for your kind words. I tape that. Any day that I'm feeling a little down or stressed out, I'm going to play that. It'll juice me right up. But it's an honor to be here on Brokers Playbook because you guys have an immense following across Canada and North America for agents, for brokers, for buyers and sellers, for investors. And I really appreciate you guys having me back to talk a bit about what we're doing to create the next generation of Canadian homeowners. And Sammy and Laura, I mean, you're like me, right? When my family came here to Canada, this was my grandparents. One of the first things they did was they saved up every penny to buy a home, and they put the upstairs into an apartment to help pay down the rent, because they believed in home ownership. They came from a country that had gone communist and private property rights weren't really there. They saw it as a great and smart investment for the long term. Plus, it's where you raise your family, right? It's where you can feel comfortable, secure yourself. You can't raise a bunch of kids inside a stock or a bond, can you?
So no, you sure can't.
They believe in that Canadian dream, and that's helped build our country, right? It's a foundation of our middle class, our strong social fabric. I know when I bought my first home in 2002, I cared more about the way my place looked, my neighbors, my wife and I got involved in the community. It's good for Canada. But the challenge we face today, Simi, Laura, is that Canadian dream is slipping away from too many people. People who do everything right, they play by the rules, they work hard, they get an education, a job, but they can't find a home they can afford to save their lives. So our number one focus, helping create that next generation of Canadian homeowners. The big way from doing that, you just need more supply, more starter homes, more move-up homes, more rentals. That's our big job when it comes to our public affairs department.
Now, Tim, sorry, Laura, I'm just going to bring up a point. We were on a call, Tim, about a week and a half ago, and we're continuously on these community calls where we meet with political leaders, fellow political leaders, and we met with Leader Del Duca, who leads the Ontario Party, that's going to be going in. There's an upcoming election in June. And Leader Del Duca for the Liberal Party brought a little town hall together kind of for the real estate industry leaders to kind of get some ideas and opinions. And I found a lot of common ground between himself and the Conservative Party. And that's important, that this is a bipartisan effort. This is not a thing that should be divisive. This should be something that is 100% the same across all political parties, because we're all human with a need for housing. Did you find the same? Do you share my opinion on those findings that everybody's trying to hit this thing, maybe with a few different policies, of course, but everybody sees the problem the same?
Yeah, for sure. And so, number one, let me say thank you for taking the time. I know you're have an extremely demanding schedule with your successful business, you're broadcasting like this. And I wanted to make sure that real estate leaders like yourself were around the virtual table with the big decision makers when it comes to housing in our province. So I've hosted these meetings with Stephen Del Duca, the Liberal leader, with Doug Ford, our Premier, leader of the Conservative Party. And we're going to book one with Andrea Horvath and hopefully the Green leader, Mike Schreiner, soon. And let me tell you on background why this is important. I used to have that job, right? I used to be leader, as you kindly said, of the PCs. And I really learned my most about files by those types of informal gatherings. I would learn from successful leaders, whether they're in real estate, in healthcare, in agriculture. And it also, you learn so much by reading in the newspaper or a briefing file from bureaucrats. You learn the most from people who roll up their sleeves every day, live and breathe the business, and are successful. So I want to make sure that the leaders today had a chance to do that. And I appreciate what you said, because it was really focused on how do we tear down some red tape and regulations that slow housing down and drive up prices. How can we try to combat the forces of NIMBYism, which want to keep everything the way it is and not create the next housing for people? And are there incentives that we can put into place that will help people get into the market in the first place? Because as you've talked about on the show, once you get your foot in the market, it's easier to move up the ladder.
That's right.
That first rung of the ladder is most crucial. That's
right. It's just like in business. It's always how do you hit the first million in revenue, and that's impossible to do until it's done. And then the second and the third, and just like the second team member, the third team member, it's always the beginning is always the tough road. So and just like this effort, all I think it needs is momentum. Meaning, if the people get behind it, they can look past ego and politics and how to stay in power versus getting things done and all the things that bring politics backwards, right? It's human nature. It's since the beginning of time. This isn't something new. Exactly. This is human nature, just like everything else. So I think I'm seeing, me personally, I have an optimistic look towards it, because I am seeing a bipartisan effort as opposed to that slamming and slandering on this topic specifically.
I think you're right. All politicians, I think, are focusing on housing, and why these meetings are important too right now is, when we do a quick calculation, we're 9 months out from the next campaign. It'll be June of 2022. And if we thought real estate was a big issue in the federal election last month, holy smokes, it's going to be, the major issue in the provincial and municipal elections next year. We've done a recent survey, and your viewers can see it at OREA, OREA.com, that showed that almost half of Ontarians 45 and under who are looking into the real estate market are actually looking to other provinces like New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Manitoba, or even the States, because they can't find an affordable home here in Ontario. And now with work from home, they could move, right? So that's the next generation of entrepreneurs, of leaders, of job creators. So we're very pleased to see all parties that are focused and looking at the ideas the real estate leaders in AREA are putting on the table to help families get the keys to their new home and help investors get rewards in the marketplace if they're bringing in new homes and new rentals.
That's very refreshing. And that actually echoes what the PricewaterhouseCoopers 2022 report said about, it starts with saying we have to start with affordability as the main concern, and we need a focused and coordinated strategy to get there, which means we cannot have bickering and infighting between all of these various groups. We need municipal and provincial and federal. We need private.
It has to be a unified front.
We need everything. Yeah, we got to throw everything at this issue. It is absolutely critical. I very much agree. So,
Laura, do you mind going into some of those big hitting initiatives that Tim is leading, like the exclusionary zoning, the infill? Can you go over some of those?
Yeah, let's do it. So, Tim, I was really interested in learning about. I'm going to start with the one that to me was most interesting because I didn't realize how much it may be impacting things. Getting dirty money out of Ontario's real estate market. How much dirty money is in this market, man? What's going on? How is this impacting overall affordability and availability?
Yeah, so let me give some background on this. And Laura, I appreciate you mentioning that PricewaterhouseCoopers report. I recommend it to your viewers. I do get to participate as one of the experts on that. So if there's ideas that you like, maybe you think of me. And ideas you don't like, well, they met my ideas too. I mean, who knows? But
yeah.
Well, what I'll do guaranteed is, Laura, because I know you shared it with me earlier. Let's get this up on the site where people can download the report. Sure. It is a very comprehensive and very deep read and delve into understanding what's happening out there. Yeah. So it will help all investors and, of course, all registrants and practitioners in the business understand the lay of the land. So please go back.
Absolute must-have. Like before the end of Q4, you got to read all 120 pages. Don't mess around.
It'll fly by. So the dirty money in real estate. So what happens here is, picture a corrupt politician in a third world country, or maybe a drug dealer or gun runner, in South America or Central America. And because those economies are unstable and corrupt themselves, they try to hide their money. And the biggest way they do that is to invest in real estate in North America and in Europe. It's a proven return. The problem we have, Laura, is that they can hide behind numbered companies in Canada. The US, European Union, UK, they're starting to crack down on this dirty money being laundered into Canadian real estate. But Canada is now wide open, so we've become a top target. And they have to have somebody they trust. They're not going to put it in Pablo Escobar's name.
It funneled out because they couldn't get in other places. They started closing those doors, and ours is still open.
So more and more into Canada. A recent study by the British Columbia government put it, I think, upwards of $20 billion in real estate investment. Ontario's number one, British Columbia number two. And they'll tend to hide it under names of a trusted confidant or family member, a niece or a nephew, and then they'll hide behind these numbered companies, so it's secure. So what we're proposing to do is to tear off that veil, to say you got to put down who the actual owners of the property are, no more numbered companies, and it's got to be searchable. So then you could trace the purchase back to crimes or corrupt regimes in other countries and cut off that pipeline. Ontario realtors don't want to see a single property go into the hands of a niece or nephew of a drug dealer that could have gone into the hands of law-abiding Canadians who played by the rules, pay their taxes, and can't find housing.
Totally.
And I couldn't agree more. Why do we have to? But when we have to compete on a Monday night for a property in Richmond Hill, that one of them has an unlimited budget due to criminal money versus somebody who is a school teacher and a factory worker, the answer is I don't want to say big, I don't want to swear, but come on, that's what we're actually talking about.
You
We're
got it.
talking about you're going to compete for a home with somebody who doesn't have a restriction because they can just be okay with selling people drugs and killing people. No problem.
And that probably ties in very nicely with your other point, which is to stop this blind bidding and red tape around this. Because I'm guessing these people that are throwing their money, flagrantly at Canadian real estate will pay anything, more or less. Would you say that's the case, Simeon and Tim?
Well, they got a lot of money to hide, and I'm sure they're willing to take some risk to keep the lion's share. So whatever the bidding process, I'm sure they'll try to get into the market. And as we just discussed, they're increasingly targeting Canada. So the good news is that we've been pushing for this. The Trudeau government did mention it. They're trying to shut it down. And we've had some very good meetings with the province of Ontario that has a tool in Terranet that currently right now does register when there is a foreign buyer. They keep track of that. So it's just one more step, Laura, on top of that, where they can start cracking down on the illegal money. So we're hoping that we'll have success. We're hearing a lot of positive words about that. The exclusionary zoning, did you want to talk about that as well? So
absolutely.
This is another big one that I think can be the biggest key to unlocking home ownership in our major urban areas. So, picture a wartime bungalow maybe in Vaughan or in Toronto or Hamilton. And, it's a lot of wear and tear. So an investor buys it or the homeowner. And right now they can tear it down and they can build a 4-story monster home. That's their right. Good for them, right? Wealthy family can live there. I'm certainly seeing a lot of that in the neighborhood where I'm in Toronto. But if they went the other way and they said, you know what, I'm going to tear down that bungalow, but I'm going to build a duplex or townhouses or properties for 3 or 4 families at an affordable level. Oh my God, Laura and Simeon, they go through the ringer. They have to go through an entire rezoning process. It can take months and months or over a year, tens of thousands of dollars in fees, let alone lawyer costs. And then all the NIMBY forces rain down on them and chase them away. And what happens? Well, the 3 or 4 families trying to get in the market never find a home to get into. So what we're saying is level the playing field.
And let's put that into context quickly, Tim.
Yeah.
Because if you were to take a 50 by 120-foot lot, a typical wartime bungalow, Scarborough, Etobicoke, the typical Toronto brick detach, that lot can easily take a 4-plex. Easily. 2-door duplexes on each side. We're talking, like, if you go to Alberta, because I lived in Alberta between being 16 and 21 years old, the average home in Alberta, like, again, this is a different place in Canada, very different than here. It looks different. It's much colder, siding, different construction materials. It's not all brick. But what I did see was 4-plexes. 4-plexes, 4-plexes, 4-plex. Why? Because they're affordable. When you split the property into 4 1,200 square foot units, all of a sudden, even if whether you're selling them on a free title or a condo title, or you're renting them, you're creating 4 1,200 square foot spaces, which are automatically more affordable than 2 2,500 square foot spaces or 1 5,000 square foot space. It's just that simple.
So true. And great starter homes, as you just said. And look, we respect property rights. Property owner should do what he or she wants to do, but level the playing field, right? Because right now there is a disincentive to try to build those affordable starting homes. And we're not saying that's every neighborhood in every place in Ontario, but for starters, let's do our high demand urban areas. Maybe, if you're in 500 meters or a kilometer of a major subway or transit station, you're next to existing density. Right there, we can go a long way to helping build the 100,000 or so affordable homes we need to catch up in the marketplace and get more supply.
So a zoning change like this, what would it do, Tim? So does it designate that it has to be this way, or does it make it like if you want to do a 4-door investment property, you can automatically or go through a much shorter process? What is the actual play there?
Yeah, typically in places that do this, like many U.S. States, New Zealand has just announced this as well, facing a similar housing crisis like here in Ontario when it comes to affordability.
Oh, I had no idea.
As of right, that you would, as of right, have the opportunity to build that 4-plex just like you would the 4-story monster home. Now, you still have to fit with local requirements. Sure. You got to put on the property. You can't infringe the neighbors, but it would be a streamlined process that would not give the NIMBYs a platform to shut down needed housing in our province.
So my next question, and this is something I spoke about with Laura, I don't think people know how to get involved in making this a reality.
That's true.
So what can I do today? What can Laura do today to promote your initiatives and to bring these things home?
So we have a campaign called Bring Affordability Home, and you can go to bringaffordabilityhome.com. And Simeon and Laura, you can see all of our policy proposals there to help make more affordable homes in the province for ownership and for rentals. So bringaffordabilityhome.com also has a button you can push, and you can automatically send a message to your MPP. We know that by your postal code. You can write an individual letter. You can use some of the language we suggest, but you basically tell them, hey, get moving on this. My son or daughter, she got her degree, she got a job. We need some homes that she can afford.
Yeah.
And here's why it's important too right now, why we've launched bringaffordabilityhome.com. Right now, the province of Ontario, the federal government is preparing their financial update and then a budget this spring. And those are the documents that are basically the plan for the province in the year ahead. We want to get these issues in there, and then the decision makers focus on getting that job done. At the same time, the other three parties, the Liberals, the Democrats, and the Green Party, are getting geared up for the election in 2022. So we'd love to see them take some of the ideas from our menu and put them in their own plan. How will they do that?
Yeah,
Well,
huge.
Sure. But if we get a lot of people, watching the Broker's Playbook today, and they go to that website and they're hearing from people across the province, are going to say, hey, there's something going on here, they're more likely to do it. So hit the button, get involved, bring affordability.
I don't think there's anything wrong with political parties sharing ideas and being on the same page with well-founded, well-documented, and well-researched ideas generated from industry experts and given considerable thought over time. In fact, Riz Danji was on Broker's Playbook and spoke of the exclusionary zoning policies and how that would mean extremely we would really help opportunities for builders and help with the pricing out of builders in these main areas around subway lines too.
You bet.
Perfect. Glad to hear that. And that's just one of the ideas, and stopping the flow of dirty money in the province is another. But I'll give you one more from my politics background. So you meet with a group like us and you listen, and we have leaders like yourselves that help make the case. But if you start hearing from people in your riding, you get one or two emails saying, oh, that's interesting, because you keep this sort of barometer, right? But you get 10, 20, we've generated over, hundreds in some of our campaigns like that. The MPPs really take notice, especially if you take time to write an individual email. So this will really drive positive change, we believe, when it comes to the housing market and supply.
So I definitely think between almost 100,000 realtors in the province, I think the most responsible thing to do as a practitioner, you owe it to your clients who help you make your living every day. You owe it to future generations to create a better environment of home ownership and more choice in home ownership and more choice of where to live. Because when my clients are forced to drive to qualify, it's not fair. Not that we have to be fair. Not that housing is a privilege. Homeownership is a privilege to most people, but it is our duty as industry professionals to make it as close to a right to own your home as possible. And I truly mean that, because how amazing would it be to see everyone own their piece of land? It would be incredible. I think this is a tremendous starting point, Tim. I think this is an amazing opportunity, Laura, for me and you to take Tim's message and really kind of make some noise with it and get our brothers and sisters involved, get the investors who come on the show to take this inner value, understanding what's going on behind the scenes. Because as an investor, let's be ultra clear. If you can pick up a single bungalow and within 6 months create a fourplex, as an investor, you will win. You will win big while helping your fellow citizen be closer to their dream and have a better lifestyle working closer to work. So this is an everyone win scenario.
Yes.
Very well said. Perfectly said.
It's all true. So let's talk about the third prong of the Bring Affordability Home Plan, which is to get rid of the red tape around blind bidding. And I'd like to hear from CMOS on this also, because you're in it every day. But yeah, for Tim, what's going on with this blind bidding, and how would red tape around it help?
Well, we want to make sure that the government doesn't bring in more red tape that's going to cause problems in the market. So let me explain where we're coming from here. You know, your home is your biggest investment for most people. It's also so precious because it's where you raise your family. And we believe that when it comes to selling your home, the homeowner should be in the driver's seat. If they want to use a traditional offer process and we're using a realtor, we recommend that, but it's their choice. It's never forced in Canada. If they want to use an auction, they can choose to do so. If they want to sell the home, maybe not to the highest offer, but to a young family who reminds them of themselves when they got into their home, that's your right as a homeowner. And we want to make sure the government doesn't take away that choice. In fact, we did fight and received, another choice in the provincial government, which would allow, if everybody agrees, to share offers around the table, every detail of the offer. Now, that information is very private, it's confidential, it's sensitive, it's finance, so you shouldn't force people. But if everybody agrees to it, that's a new choice that's taken place under our Trust and Real Estate Services Act, TRESA.
And I want to explain this because maybe in Laura, you being in the mortgage industry, not the real estate industry,
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, you don't get that. You don't get that anecdotal, firsthand experience with it. So the whole point here is, a lot of people think the blind bidding process is unfair and it drives prices up. The answer is, sure, it does. An open bid process does the same thing, but it doesn't protect it from going up 100,000 because it's going to go up by 500. What it does is exposes people's offers and information
to other buyers, or only
to everyone around. If you don't have an issue with it and you would like to go this road, what TRESA is proposing to put in legislation is you have the option to do so. But don't force me to give, well, if I can go with a $250,000 deposit versus your $30,000, I'm going to win even with $100,000 less. So the intangibles of security and deal structure and strategy are being blown away with an open process. So if I am more capable than you, Laura, why do I need to expose my strengths, which are going to hurt my chances of winning a home in a short supply market? It's not just about the finished price. It's, do I remind him, the seller, of himself? Do you remind him of this? Or does he just want to see this deal close and not take any chances? Because he is forced to move to Mexico for a work assignment. Or we never know what's happening to someone.
So, I mean, I actually acquired my house through blind bidding. I didn't know what anyone else was doing. It was like, here's offer start today, give me your best and only shot. Right. And I think that's fair, right? Like, don't bother with this back and forth thing, especially if it's power of attorney or something more impersonal. I think it's probably less likely to be a seller that's very attached to their home. Whereas this is just like, you know what, I just want to get this deal done, right? Who's going to give me a 30-day closing, no conditions, here's your deposit, let's get it done. And I think that is seller's rights. So this sounds like a good plan to me.
And I'll tell you where it comes from. So we were worried in the most recent campaign, the Trudeau Liberals had some very good ideas. They want to add more homes into the market. They want to stop the money laundering that is buying up real estate from corrupt officials abroad. We walked through that. But one of the dangerous issues they had, Laura, was that they were going to outlaw the traditional offer process and basically impose an auction process. Whether that's somebody on your front lawn or everybody around the table or online, if you're revealing what everybody's putting in place, that's an auction. And our caution is that takes away somebody's right to decide how to sell their home. But as Simeon said, in countries in Australia, New Zealand, where auctions aren't mandated, they're chosen by sellers. And the reason almost half of sellers do that is because they drive up prices. Auction fever is created. You keep trying to outbid the other person.
Yeah, totally.
Carried away. So
I think I would have had a harder time getting in the door if suddenly the other bidders could have kept upping it.
Right.
you know. So that makes sense.
And also remember, not every market is suitable for this. So to make a ruling on a nation based on a region's problems is also a mistake. It's
Yeah.
actually the biggest. If you speak to anybody on the East Coast or the West Coast, anywhere other than Vancouver, Ontario, and Montreal, basically, they're going to tell you that I'm sick of lifting your weight, Ontario. I'm
Oh
sick of
God.
lifting your weight, urban areas, because the problems that arise in a densely populated area are not the same problems that are anywhere else.
That's exactly what happened with the stress test. The stress test should not have
Precisely.
been applied to
To the
these
country.
like secondary and rural markets / anywhere not BC and Ontario. Ridiculous. Like they made it completely impossible for these other areas. So yeah.
I love you both. We're gonna take this
Yeah.
thing down because we're getting into vent zone. So
Right.
and we don't solve anything by venting. What we do though is I want to remind everyone that again, Mr. Hudak, thank you for leading the Ontario Real Estate Association the way you do. We're gonna put out as much noise as we can of bringing the affordability battle to the attention of our members of provincial parliament, to bring it to the forefront, and hopefully we can see the needle move, and see some of these zoning, both inclusionary zoning for high rise, exclusionary zoning for the areas that we touched on close to subways. I would love to see some of these initiatives go through. They would make a huge impact on the market.
Definitely.
You bet. And again, one last pitch. Thanks for having me on again, Lawrence. It's always a pleasure to be on the Playbook here. But there's other ideas that people can read at bringaffordabilityhome.com, including using surplus government land for housing projects and the possibility of converting some underutilized commercial space, especially in the work from home world, into residential or mixed residential commercial as an investment or homes.
Definitely. On board with both of those.
Tim, I look forward to having you back. I definitely have so much more to cover with you. I'm going to try to line up our schedules again, maybe for the beginning of 2022. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you. Laura, as always, lovely to spend the morning with you as well. To the whole Brokers Playbook Nation, from coast to coast, and of course to our neighbors down south, for those of you who listen to what's happening in North America's whitest hot market. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Cheerio.